So how do we, there was a survey from Education Week that said 64% of American teachers and administrators said their pupils faced technology limitations. That's a huge number. What can we do? What can we do as businesses? Obviously we have lots of representatives on this panel, but what do you as service providers, as technology companies, as educators, what's the message? What's the message that we should be telling people, we should be talking about on other Zoom calls, on socially distanced coffee, socially distanced, happy hours? What should we be doing, or what can we be doing to help this situation?
I think one of the most basic things that's obviously coming up in the next couple of days here is voting for bills and amendments that are going to support education funding. Colorado has some of the worst public education funding in our country. And as we think about schools having an increasing amount of need for technology and just student support in a new environment, I think it's critical that we consider how we vote in ways that support access to more funding at the school level, for sure.
Okay, voting. Agree. What else can we do?
Well, let's be clear. There's some very positive things that have come out of technology this year. So if you look at the leaps and bounds with which Zoom grew, Microsoft Teams upgraded their platform, I would contend that they've taken 4 or 5 years of development and crammed it into 2020, and we're all benefiting from that now. And in fact, we're a big Slack shop, and we've been using Teams, and I love the quality. There's still some issues with regards to dial-in and whatnot. It's still conferencing issues, but the development that's happening right now, and there's people right now working because there's so much. And this speaks to something you asked earlier, Nick, about what's this going to look like. I think in the end, employers are going to allow some of their workforce to remain working from home. It doesn't cost anything to lease a commercial space for them, to have an office, to pay for desks, to pay for phones. Everybody can be on a soft phone, and they just have to be issued a laptop and and maybe an external monitor. But the point of all that is, I think that this, you asked the question, what can we do? I think we need to recognize what's going to be the result of this. I think there are people right now developing other products because they see the money involved. If I'm an employer and I say it costs me X dollars a year to have an employee sit in a leased space with utilities and whatnot, I'm looking at that now. And there's a software developer, I'm certain right now, developing a software package that's going to make that much easier. And so the thing I said, let's be clear about, is I think that technology has evolved really quickly, and it's helping students, and it's helping professionals, and it will continue. And I think there's going to be a pretty large impetus. Even the virtual conference platforms that I've seen, shocking. The ability to attend the conference live, to go back and watch it. I'm not sure people are going to attend conferences as broadly in the future. So I want to point out, I think there's some positives that are coming out of this. Everybody knew up to 2019 that America had a broadband problem. Now it's been emphasized, and people are responding. And to something that Brian Hollister said, this feels a little bit like, like everybody needs to be talking about it. And I think everybody is talking about it. And in my view, this feels a little bit like electrification, where everybody's neighbors started getting together at the fence line and saying, well, why don't we build our own electrical line? And that's what Longmont's doing with their fiber. That's what a number of communities are doing and power companies are doing. And that's the right discussion. This is all the right discussion that we need to have. So my answer is, I think that that's happening now. We could try to solve the problem now, but I think that just talking about it helps that problem.
And Brian, along the same lines of the progress being made, I'd like to, I guess, make a shout out to just the school districts throughout the country. The progress they're making is just, they've just been evolving and adapting and adopting new technologies, and kind of just sharing it back among themselves to find out what is working and what's not working. one example my daughter gave me was just an app that lets you, the teacher makes it easy for a teacher to just simply teach on some topic, maybe 10 minutes. And then each student then is presented with a series of questions that they separately then answer themselves. It just gives a real quick feedback to the teacher in terms of whether or not the students are picking up on it. So it's a little more challenging. You know, teachers always trying to look to see if students are understanding what they're saying. A little more challenging, especially if they don't have the video, of course. So lots of little things like that that are happening, and kind of at a really accelerated pace throughout the school districts of the U.S.
I think one of the problems that we have from, working some of the smaller rural schools around the, kind of in the outskirts of Longmont and stuff, we still need to figure out how to get devices into the students' hands. Libby, touched on it, that the funding that takes place in Colorado is pretty poor. I don't know if that's a, public-private partnership that needs to take place where corporations come in and help fund that, but there's got to be a way to get those devices. You can provide them with the broadband, but if they don't have the devices to access their online learning, it's kind of a moot point.
That's a great point. I think, and Brian Wortham, I think, you hit it's important to recognize the good things, right? Like there have been some amazing technology advancements. And as Dr. Dave said, like I would also, we know educators are underpaid. We know educators are underappreciated. And I think they are, moving mountains this year and doing things that, I think without them, we would be in a lot worse situation. Forget broadband for a second. They've taken it amongst themselves to do more with less. And so that's, I think, something to appreciate as well. And we need to try to figure out how we can continue to help them do that.
Well, I think Wortham said it, really good in the essence that, there's actually a lot of progression happening here. I think of my own children and all of the things that they've been taught from a technical standpoint associated with communicating with their teachers. They use a program called Notes. I always think of Lotus Notes for some of us that have been around.
Totally cool.
But they pass these notes back and forth, right? Kids pass notes, right? So they pass notes to the teacher, and that's how they communicate. And it's super simple, super easy. But it is absolutely fascinating to watch this evolution happening. It obviously came on wild and crazy in the beginning, but the schools have done an amazing job. It went from us figuring out day by day a good summer break that was not a break for any teacher that's been around. And they have come into this school year in our school doing an amazing job. Even my kid, he's like, yeah, I hope we never have to give up this, every other day kind of thing. He loves it. And he's totally dialed in. So I think there is a lot of really cool advancements happening. I think there's a lot of people developing some amazing things, and also just watching the impact to all of us, right? From a technical aspect, we're constantly all showing each other new things. And now it's some things that we're being taught from our kids that they're learning, that something new from school, right? And how they're having to communicate. So I actually think it's super fascinating and awesome. And there have been a lot of good things that actually have come from this. But obviously there's a lot of challenges too. But I think what we can do is exactly what Brian said, is continue to talk about this, bringing different people together from all parts of the community. And what I love about, what being in the broadband industry, it's always been an industry that's ever evolving and changing. And always it's always added value. But right now it's a bipartisan topic. Everyone's for figuring out how to fix this gap, and we've never had this much attention on it, and I'm super enthusiastic about it. The conversations I've had just in the last week or two with whether it be government leaders, tribal nations, it's all the same conversation. We're all having the same conversation, no matter what walk of life, no matter what we do. everyone's being impacted. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're Americans, and every American deserves a connection. And we've got to continue to talk about this and make it happen. And I do believe, because of the pandemic, we're actually going to increase the momentum in closing the gap. But along the way, there's certainly going to be some other challenges that we've acknowledged, you know, in today's, you know, topics conversation.